It was like one of the best ways to succeed in computer science is to not have any friends in computer science, because you have to rely on yourself. You can't just copy their homework. Like at the time, for the past 4 years in a row, they had recruited 50,000 salespeople every year. Of launch, we had 80% of Cutco on it.
Cutco is a huge company.
Yes.
What's going on, guys? This is Danny Klein. Welcome to the Undeniable Podcast. I'm here with Joe from Siro, a revolutionary AI coaching app, and is absolutely killing the game. Joe is 25 years old. The whole theme of the Undeniable Podcast is to bring on undeniable guests who have done undeniable things and gotten undeniable results. Awesome to have you here, bro.
Pleasure to be here, man.
Tell us a little bit about like your upbringing, man. Like, did you start in sales? Did you start in tech? When did you get into sales? What was your start into this field?
Yeah, so definitely did not expect to be in sales or be good at it. I was studying computer science. I was kind of like a nerdy, introverted kid growing up. But my freshman year of college, I got a letter in the mail about selling Cutco knives to moms. And I didn't expect to end up like going anywhere with it, but I took it because I figured it would look better on my resume than camp counselor.
Cutco knives to moms specifically.
Well, I think it said something a little more vague.
Yeah. I love that.
But when I showed up, that's kind of what we figured it was going to be. I ended up selling number 2 in the office that summer.
Wow. And how old were you?
Let's see, it was 2017, so I was 19.
Awesome.
And I learned a ton. Like, besides the sales skills, like also just a willingness to bet on myself. So fast forward a summer, I ended up getting promoted to a manager role. And that summer, we finished in the top 2% of sales teams in the company, like number 10 in new business out of about 600. And it was an awesome experience. Learned a ton, was invited to the company headquarters to speak.
Wow.
But the problem was I wasn't able to help a single one of the 186 sales reps that I trained to sell more than I had the previous summer. A lot of them like quit without selling anything, left with a bad taste in their mouth, left like prospects with a bad taste in their mouths because they weren't trained properly. And that was my fault, right? And the problem was I just didn't have enough time to coach them.
Yeah. And slow down before you even go into that. So 186 reps, did you recruit all of those? Were they the downline? Did you recruit some of those? Like, how did that even come to fruition? Because once you're you go to a good salesperson, and then now you're a good recruiter, and then now you're a good leader, or as you get to this point where you're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm a good leader because they're not training, and that's how you got this app. But tell us how you got these people.
Yeah, so
because recruiting is one of the hardest things.
It is. Cutco does it particularly well. I think there was some ridiculous stat when I was looking through the Cutco numbers. Like at the time, for the past 4 years in a row, they had recruited 50,000 salespeople every year. So Cutco does it better than anybody. So how did we take that amazing recruiting process and improve upon it and get outsized results even for Cutco? There were really 3 things we did. Number 1 is we leveraged social media in a scalable way. So the summer before, someone had proven out a Facebook recruiting strategy, which they called Facebook Jumpstart, where you just start friending people in the territory that you want to recruit, specifically looking for like the captain of the football team or the president of the student body, right? The people who are popular and are probably going to be able to hold a conversation.
Yeah, they can communicate well. They got social skills.
Exactly. And you friend all the people around them first. So you go to their friends list, you friend those people, and then you send them a friend request.
That's so funny because what we'll even that strategy, it almost feels like common sense. Like when somebody first got that idea, they had to have just been like, dude, this is genius. Because we'll do something called likes to leads. And basically it'll go from like, once you friend request somebody, you'll go in their comments and their likes, and you'll see who's engaging on that content. And then you just go and you kind of work that network. It's the best way because you already have somewhat of that trust and mutual relationship.
Exactly. And Facebook is a really great place to do that because when you send that request, you see the mutual friends and you can put people into a list. I don't even know if Facebook still supports this feature, but it was like something I didn't even know about until this program. You put all these people that you're friending for this purpose in a list. Yeah. And then you can go to your feed filtered down to that list. And you just go in, you like some stuff, you drop a couple of comments, like you keep it warm.
Yep.
And this way, you feel familiar when you go and reach out to that person who you really want. And so this wasn't a program that I invented. We just took it and made it scalable. So we understood the program. We turned it into something. We translated the whole thing into a document. We created a spreadsheet. There's actually some code I wrote to make the spreadsheet like up to date and sync with what you were doing on Facebook. Yeah. And then we hired people specifically just to send messages all day long. We called it like a social media recruiting internship. And it was literally just copy and pasting messages to people and creating these friend lists and so forth. And so that's how we got the foundation started. So that was thing number one we did.
Yeah.
Thing number two that we did was we got people to recommend their friends. And again, this was a program that already existed in Cutco. I just did a really good job at executing it. And we talked about like the importance of creating a winning culture, about being one of the top offices, sort of sold them on the vision and made it something that people wanted to be a part of and wanted their friends to be a part of. And Cutco at the time literally had this app that you would download and it would import your contacts and you would, everything was default opted in to get recommended. Oh, wow. And you would just scroll through your contacts and deselect who you didn't want to recommend. And we would throw contests as people are submitting their contacts in the app. And you say, everyone over 100 gets a ticket into a raffle for a steak knife. And then everyone over 150 gets 3 tickets, so on and so forth. You go. And a big stat that we tracked was the average number of friends that everyone we recruited would recommend. And I think overall, across the summer, we had somewhere between 100 and 150 friends recommended each by every other person that we brought in. And then we would send out an automatic text campaign to those people. We would hold back the top ones and call them personally. And so that was thing number 2 that we did.
Dude, killer. So absolutely killed it at Cutco. You're one of the top salesmen at Cutco. Then you transitioned. So talk to us about that transition. So you went from killing it, recruiting, and then you sold that system back to Cutco.
Yep.
And then you started Siro, or what was that process like right after? Starting to Siro.
Yeah. So Siro took a little bit longer to formulate. What I did first was created a different app, which is actually how I met my co-founder, Jake. It was called Q. At Cutco, one of the things you do is you call all the referrals that you get from the appointments that you run, which, by the way, is the craziest thing that I see in like door-to-door solar home services, that people don't get 10 referrals from everyone they sit down with. Like,
it's easiest business.
If you just
They don't negotiate, they're excited, they trust. It's the best business to get.
Yeah, exactly. But we were calling our referrals off pen and paper. So Q, basically, you would import your contacts, you would add your referrals in. It would help score the leads based on who was referred, whether they were a personal contact of yours, the network, and then you would queue up all your leads and dial through them like a music playlist. And what we found was that people made twice as many phone calls per hour and booked 63% more demos using Q versus on pen and paper. So that was the second software product I sold.
Okay, and what did you sell that for, if you could disclose anything, or what was that like, just so people understand the magnitude of like what it is, because you're not like crazy on social media, you're not like right there. So I want these people to understand that like Joe is a killer. Joe is a guy that builds things, he sold things, and he gets things done. And the reason I wanted to have him on here today is because he's doing big shit. And there's not a lot of guys that, are in their 20s that have even the identity to be able to go and hit these big things and just keep digging with absolutely no limits. A lot of people, they say that they have no limits, but as soon as they get to a certain, income or a certain level of living, whether that be $500,000 or $1 million a year or a certain level of success, they sell out. And they decide that that's where they want to stay. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the same people that say they want these big things, they coast. Yeah. So what was that like? What was the...
it was a great starter business, let's say. Yeah. Within 6 months of launch, we had 80% of Cutco on it.
Cutco is a huge company.
Yeah. So we were doing like $30K a month on that.
Yep.
7 months in.
Okay.
And the funny part is, and this is where I made a decision to go bigger. A couple of months before we launched, my now co-founder at Siro cold called me because he was building a very similar app called Knife Life. And he was selling it to a Cutco manager who said they actually already used Q, one of the beta testers of Q before we launched it.
Yeah.
And he cold called me and basically said we should work together. And I basically said, no, I'd rather just beat you, and hung up. But then he called me back and he went through all of my concerns kind of one by one, and was like very structured about handling each of my objections. And I was like, wait a second, this is a good app that he wrote. Also, he can clearly sell because he's selling me. And field sales in general is really underserved by technology. So I could make a decision right now not to cut my co-founder now, Jake, in and make maybe more money on Q than I would otherwise. But this isn't just about Q. This is about the larger market opportunity, the partnership we build now to go after that with whatever the next company is. And then about 12 months after that, we figured out the next company was going to be Siro.
That's beautiful. And explain what Siro is now to everybody. Just what does it do?
Yeah. So very simply, Siro is an AI sales tool that takes recordings of your salespeople and tells you what mistakes your reps are making, and then plugs in what the top reps are doing in those scenarios to give you the examples you and your sales reps need to adjust to take advantage of those opportunities and stop making those mistakes. So fundamentally, like, the reason the company exists is because of that experience I had at Cutco as a manager. I was able to realize freedom from sales. And it sounds like cliche, but there's no way that I would be able to do what I'm doing now unless I had that experience at Cutco. I would probably just be a code monkey writing like code for some big tech company somewhere if I didn't have that experience. And now I get to run my own business because I learned how to sell and I learned to bet on myself.
Yeah, dude, communication is so freaking important. It's like the guy that cold called you, the partner. In the beginning, you're like, dude, f off, but his communication skills is what got you through. Without that, it would have just been like, no bueno, I'm out.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you the opportunity to work on what you want, and if you have an idea, to be able to execute on it. And so I was frustrated that I wasn't able to give that level of experience to my salespeople. I mean, forget about the income, right? I mean, the income would have been nice for them, but it was really the freedom that I wanted to give them. And so that's really fundamentally the reason that Siro exists, is to make sales the most accessible path to economic freedom. And the approach we're taking is to put world-class coaching in every seller's pocket using AI.
Dude, that's kick. So if I have it, like, it can be on my phone, it can be on a website, because I know your main niche is mostly, door to door, but you can pretty much service just about anything. You guys have attacked the door to door space. Can I have my phone just on the doors? Does it work on Zoom? Like, how does it work to kind of record actively?
Yeah, totally. So we can do Zoom meets Teams.
Okay.
And then any other in-person interaction, whether you're sitting down in a home with someone, you're going to someone's place of business to have a sales conversation, or you're knocking doors neighborhood to neighborhood. It's super simple. You just press one button to start the recording. It's right on your lock screen, so you don't even have to unlock your phone. There's a widget that goes right there. You tap it, it starts the recording, and then you don't have to stop it until you're done with all your conversations, because what it will do is actually identify where the sales conversations are, parse them out, and separate them each into their own recordings. And we're working on some partnerships right now to make it even easier. So for example, we're working with SalesRabbit and Gamify in the door-to-door space to actually integrate automatic recording directly into the canvassing app, where as you're dropping your pins, it's starting and stopping the recording automatically for you, so you don't have to worry about it. And then we're doing the AI in the background as you're doing all that to start analyzing, telling you where your mistakes are and what examples from top reps you need to look at and emulate.
So if I've knocked, like, say 30 doors, when I go back and I stop it, when I go back to kind of check everything out, it'll show me like door 1, door 2, door 3, here's your conversation. I can kind of just select it.
Exactly. And it'll track, hey, you were recording for 3 hours, but you only talked to customers for an hour and a half. And here were actually all the recordings and how fast you were talking, all that.
Tell me what kind of stats, like what does it break down? Because I know we talked about, like, it'll go through and pinpoint the objections, the intro, but obviously all the intricacies of it. Like, what kind of stats does it break down? What kind of KPIs?
Yeah, so I'll tell you 2 things it tracks now, and then the next thing we're working on. So first and most importantly, it tags the conversation with the key moments that are happening. So the objections, the buying questions, the pricing, the next steps, the scheduling. And what we do with that information is we're able to track how often it's happening. So for example, in door-to-door, if you're getting stuck at pricing and you're not getting to the close enough, we can identify that that drop off is really big and that you need to work on pricing. And then what we'll do is we'll recommend you the top examples from the company of how to do pricing, people who are getting to the close. Then if you're getting an objection way more often than other people, or it's tripping you up way more often than other people, we can just show you the top objection handles in the company. We call that our answer key feature. So that's one thing we track. Another thing we track is these overall conversation level metrics. So pacing, how fast are you talking? Speaker share, what percentage of the conversation are you talking versus the customer? And there's a bunch of these. I could list them all out. But the two most interesting ones that we've seen actually have the biggest impact on sales are control and the number of questions asked. Control tracks the percentage of your speaking turns in the conversation where you ask a question. Because what we see all the time, not just in door-to-door, but also in home improvement and these long appointments, is people lose control of the conversation and they're unable to bring them back to the sales playbook that they've been taught. And if you just finish a sentence and then let the customer talk, they can take it wherever they want. But if you want to maintain control, you need to finish with a question to guide them to where you want them to get to, and that way you can stay on track. So that's one of the most interesting ones that we look at. And we see the top reps are asking questions in close to half of their speaking turns.
Yeah, that's great. It's so crazy because, like, you know, you say the questioning, right? I always tell people, like, most of sales, like if you're a really good salesperson, most of what you're doing is mostly just asking questions, qualifying, guiding them. It's like straight line selling. I don't want to sit here and just ramble on and kind of go off over here. I also don't want to let the customer sit here and ramble off too much. I want to keep on the, you know, line to the sale, on that sales process. I don't want to be way off over here talking about, you know, Susie's soccer game, and I want to talk about what we're here to talk about, which is, you know, the business, the sales conversation. I want to take this in a different direction.
Yeah.
Because I love the, you know, you're young, I'm young, you know, you're 25, I'm 25, and we're both doing like big things in this space. What are some things that have allowed you to just be like, you know what, I'm the man, I'm going to run the company, I'm going to, you know, partner and do big things, I'm going to invest in my company. What is that process like for you? You know, like for a lot of people that are trying to break through, it's like that initial step. You know, do you think that's something that you were gifted? Did you work on it? You know, we talked about being like a wrestler and kind of going through the repetitions to master those things. Is it something you always instilled, or was it one of those things that you kind of worked on to kind of just have that confidence? Or was it just you were just so invested in learning that it fueled your confidence? Maybe a combo of both.
Yeah, I think it comes down to two things. First, just like learning capacity, like ability to learn and rate of learning. And then the willingness to bet on your ability to learn what you need to learn. It's sort of like you have to do it once to jump off the cliff and like build your wings on the way down. I forget who said that.
Yeah.
But you have to do it once to get the confidence that you can do it. And then you just have to be a student. And you have to be curious. You have to be humble. This is one of the values that we have internally at Siro, is everyone has to be no ego. And one of the interview questions that we always ask people, or that I always ask people in the final round interviews is, tell me about a time where someone who reported to you or who was in a different domain convinced you that you were wrong about something you were confident in. And if you don't have an example of that, then you're not humble enough to be a part of Siro, right? And so I think it comes down to those two things. And I can talk about like some of the things in my background that give me those qualities, that allow me to acquire those qualities. But those are the two qualities I think it comes down to.
Tap into one of those moments that's kind of on top of mind that, you know, you're talking about. What are one of those key moments for you?
When I first got to college, I got in as a mechanical engineering student. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was good at physics, and mechanical engineering seemed like the physics engineering. So that's what I decided to do. Both my parents, though, were computer programmers. That's actually how they met.
Makes total sense now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I decided, you know what, I want to try computer programming. It seems like it's in my blood. Maybe I should try it. Meanwhile, I'm also on the track team, varsity track. I was recruited to Penn to run the 400 hurdles. I walked in, I told my advisor, I want to take the intro to computer science class. And he said, that's a horrible idea. You should not do that, because you're already doing varsity track. That's going to be 18 hours a week. That's already sunk into practice. And this class makes computer science majors quit computer science. Like, it's a distraction for you. You're mechanical engineering. You don't want to do it. I said, okay, great, sign me up.
Yeah, I like that.
Once I was there, I didn't really know anyone, because those weren't people in my major. And One of my TAs from one of those classes, I think, said it best. It was like, one of the best ways to succeed in computer science is to not have any friends in computer science, because you have to rely on yourself. You can't just copy their homework. And there were times where I sat for hours trying to figure something out. Why isn't this working? How does this work? Am I even looking in the right place? And
what even is that look like in just a short conversation? Like computer science, you go in, like, what are you learning? Is it code? Is it numbers? Is it software? Like, everything.
At an abstract level, like, you're learning how to break down tasks into very, very, very small steps. So for example, if you want to draw a picture of a smiley face, what you're going to do is you're going to break that into extremely small steps. Like, you want to draw a yellow pixel here for perhaps like the face, and then you want to draw a black pixel here. And then it's like, okay, well, how far apart do I want the eyes to be? How curved should the smile be, right? And so you're breaking all these things into steps that a computer can understand. And then you're just telling those steps to the computer. So that's what computer science is.
Kick ass, dude. So talk to us about the vision of Siro. Where do you see it going? Do you plan to sell one day? Do you plan to build it and just scale it as big as possible? Where do you see, what's the vision of Siro?
Yeah, the way I see it is we're not done until we break the 80-20 rule in sales. And if we can do that, then the end outcome for the company financially will take care of itself.
Yes.
But when I get up in the morning, it's not to like make a lot of money or grow the company really big. It's specifically to have that impact, because every single company sales data that we've analyzed, and it's spooky, over half the sales come from the top 20% of reps. You know, if you have a company that did, I don't know, $1 million and they have 10 reps, at least 500K came from 2 of them.
It's crazy how it works out, because it's like you hear the rule, but then like if you were to average out all these companies, it is true.
Yeah. And what that means is it's a myth that there's such a thing as a good, okay, or average sales rep. There are exceptional salespeople, and then there are people who are struggling. And some of them may not even realize that they're struggling. And we don't even say that they're struggling because it's just been this way forever. And fundamentally, the reason is there's not enough coaching to go around, which is why I love working with you guys. And so the way we're going to disrupt the 80-20 rule and replicate the performance of that top 20% of people is by making world-class coaching abundant, such that we can take what the top reps are doing and coach everyone else to it. And if we do that, we're going to create financial and economic freedom for millions of people. And that's the goal.
I love young entrepreneurs, man. It's cool to see what you're doing. If you could give one piece of advice to any entrepreneur out there, you've been through a lot of you've been through a lot of problems. I've watched you today, even in our events, sponsor at the event, in and out, on calls, on the computer, bouncing around. We're doing a meeting with Andy. You're on a podcast. It's like you've done so many things today. It's just crazy to see, the young entrepreneur in the grind. What's one piece of advice to close out for everybody on just how to keep going? What does it take? Anything that's off your heart just to be successful as a young entrepreneur?
Find something you love. You're never going to love all the tasks that you have to do. There's always going to be parts of it you hate. But just do something you care about, because we're all a little bit money motivated, but like if you're going to be an entrepreneur, like it's going to be hard enough that money is not going to be a big enough motivator. And so find something you love that you actually care about, that no one else is doing, and that's important. If you find something that people aren't doing, it's not going to happen without you, and it's important and you love it, you'll be able to get through those times, and you'll be able to learn what you need to learn, and you'll persist through the fear, the anguish, the hard times, and you'll figure it out. So that would be the biggest thing, is come from a place of love.
Man, could not have agreed more. If you guys want to check out Siro, if you guys want to set up a demo, you guys can go to Siro.com, right?
Siro.ai.
Yeah, Siro.ai. You guys can check it out. It'll have a little option for you guys to go there and book a demo. Thanks for being on the Undeniable Podcast, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, man. Absolutely.